Hi everyone. So the other day the other week in lab 1, we used the apply function to create a table of sorts to show us some of the variance, the mean, the median, the mode. We want to create a little neater table that we can do some titles and things with. And we're going to do just a real simple example of it today, but later we'll be able to do more with it. And we're going to use a package called the stargazer package. There are other packages that do the same thing. Um, the first thing you're going to have to do uh, for this is install the package. And you're going to do it down here in um, the console because anytime we install packages, we don't want to install packages every time every time we run the script. That's uses too much computing power. It slows things down. It causes wear and tear on your disk drive, actually. So we're going to go install Stargazer. And as I started typing, I typed STARG. RStudio picked up every possible package I could possibly be wanting to install, everything that's got any of those letters in it that starts with ST. And the one I want is the one named Stargazer. I'm going to click it. It did a good thing for me. It put the correct quotation marks in. And I'm going to hit install, but I'm not actually going to install it because I'm going to get, oh, well, I guess I can. Okay, so I installed it. I tried it earlier and I already had it loaded, so it didn't like that. So the next thing we're going to do, and you want to do this in your script, is load the library. So loading the library, so installing it only has to be done once. Loading it has to be done every time you use it in a new script. So we're going to put in the script, use the library command. It's library stargazer, no quotation marks when you do the library. I don't know why it's quotation marks for packages and not for libraries. One of the great mysteries of life. Um, so I'm going to highlight that and click one. Now or hit run. So now it's loaded. Um, the next thing I have to do is define the stats table. Actually, I don't have to do that. The variance function did work just fine. But I've got to define the stats table because Stargazer doesn't like the variance function. So we're going to create the stats table and then run Stargazer. And this is going to be very similar, like almost the same as what we did before. What's different is first, I'm going to create the variables that I want to use. And so from Gapminder, I don't want to use this one because it's actually interesting. I don't want to use this one because it may be of interest to some of you. So I'm going to use year and population as my variables. They have to be numeric, so I can't use country or continent. Um, but I'm going to put in the variables. And so I'm creating an object just called VARS with those two in it. And the only purpose of this is to save it over here so that it can be used in the next step. And so the next step is I'm going to create a new data frame called that pulls the variables, the actual variables from Gapminder. And so I'm going to run that and I'll show you what it looks like so you can see it's created a new data frame that eliminated all of the non-numeric stuff. It eliminated the things I wasn't interested in, and it created a data frame that has just the variables I want. So it's got the year and the population, got rid of everything else. And I did that by saying that my new data frame would be a data frame that took just the variables that I defined up here. So it takes Gapminder data and then the brackets and the comma. There's nothing in front of the comma, so I'm taking all rows. After the comma tells what columns, and it's going to refer back to this and find the columns. Um, I could have done the same thing by putting the C parentheses year pop in here, But if I want more variables, if I want a dozen variables, I can put them here. It's a little neater coding, just prevents some errors. And I can come back and refer to the variables later also, which I'm going to do here. So I actually am going to use this twice. So it did save me a little bit because the next thing is I want to create the stats table. This is where we're going to be very similar to what we did with apply in previous lab. Um, so I'm going to create a data frame called stats table. So stats table is the name. There's the assignment operator that we're used to. There's the data frame command. And I'm telling it that the variables, I want to give the names year and pop. Uh, and then I want the mean, the median, the variance, and the standard deviation. And I'm going to round to 3 decimal places, which actually won't make any difference here. But I'm going to round. Um, I'm going to use sapply, the data frame, so the DF, and I want the mean, median, variance, and standard deviation for my variables. So I run that. It's created the stats table up here. So now it's got year and pop as variable, mean, median, variance, and standard deviation. So it's got column names. So created the column names, and then I told it what to put in the column names. So for this column name, I put in the VARs, and then for this column, these columns, I put in for each of the variables, the mean, median, variance, and standard deviation. And if I were to type just stats table at this point, I'd get a table, and it's not too bad looking. It's got some scientific notation out here, and there are some ways we can deal with that, but uh, it's not too bad looking. You could just turn that in. That would be fine. Um, but if I run the stargazer table, uh, and so I'm using the stargazer function from the stargazer library or package, and I'm telling it to run on stats table. I'm telling it to go out here and pick out stats table. I'm telling it type equals text. And the reason for that is because there are a number of types of output it can do. One of the types of output it can do is really useful for the way that a lot of us writing scientific articles write, which is in something called LaTeX. It's spelled like latex and it's pronounced LaTeX with a capital L, a capital T, and a capital X. Um, but we want just the text output that you can just copy and paste into Microsoft Word or a Google Doc or whatever word processor you use. The title is just obviously it's going to give a title to our table. Summer equals false, row names equals false. Row names equals false means just what it sounds like. It's not going to put the row names in there. Summary equals false is just telling it not to do the usual thing that it would do, which is a summary. And then digits equals 3 tells it to go to only three um, decimal places. So I'm going to run that. And I get something that, first of all, it's eliminated that scientific notation. I just have uh, I just have the numbers. The columns are separated by a space, and I've got the mean, median, variance, standard deviation, year, and population are the variables. So I told it row names equals false because I already had year and population in as variable. So I would have ended up with, if I hadn't told it year row name equals false, I would have ended up with year pop and then year pop again. So anyway, at this point, since this is done in text format, all you've got to do is select what you want and either with your mouse copy it or with the keyboard with Control C or Command C on a Mac. Control C on Windows and Linux, Command C on a Mac. So, um, so that's it. I'm not going to actually go paste it into a Word document. I think you can figure that one out. But the so that's it. Um, and I want to say about this. What are the things you can use directly? Well, library Stargazer, you can copy that right into your script. The variables, you can copy this into your script. You just have to change what variable names you want. You can copy this into your script. You just have to change what data frame you want. So if I wanted to use the VDEM stuff, I'd change the name to VDEM indices 2014. That's not going to work because the POP variable doesn't exist there. I could do it if the only variable I wanted was year because I think the variable year does exist there. But anyway, you're going to change the name of what you're to what you actually want. Uh, you're going to change the variable names to what you actually want. You need to make sure that this is typed exactly like this, whatever you choose. You need to make sure your variables are typed exactly like, close these down, typed exactly like the variables in your source. So in this case, GDP per cap, if you wanted to do that, it's got a capital P in it. You got to make sure to get that capital P or you'll get an error. Once you've done those two things, this part, the stats table, it's going to actually go back and refer to the things you just created. So this part right here, um, for most purposes, at least starting out, you can just copy this. Um, all of the things that you have to modify are in here. The same goes here. This, you just copy it. Unless you wanted to, unless you want to change things. If you want to leave out a function, you can do that. If you want to have the row names, you can change it and have the row names. I'll show you what that would do. So see, the row names really mess things up because it repeats. And so, yeah, we definitely don't want those row names. I didn't think it was going to be quite that bad, but that was pretty bad. Um, what if you want the summary? I don't think this is going to work, but maybe it will. We'll see. Um, yeah, you get a mess. You get a mess mostly because of what the summary actually gives you is the mean standard deviation. The summary actually gives you some of those statistics, but it gives you some other things too. And so we won't do that. We're gonna leave that as false. Um, but yeah, so hmm, boy, did I mess something up. That's all right. Don't worry about that. Um, we'll just uh, we'll just and definitely don't do the things I just did because I messed some stuff up. Um, and it was just to show you what would happen. But if you want the original, well, I've lost the original, but it's there somewhere. You saw what I did. You copy, you paste. Um, all right. So um, so that should work. Um, run it cleanly, and the first time you do it with whatever you choose, you'll be okay. Okay, this is what's happened. Sometimes the solutions are really simple. The only reason it looked bad was because I had done that. So yeah, so this table is fine. This is exactly what it's supposed to be, and you can copy and paste that. So we learned a little extra lesson. Sometimes it's a matter of, oh, I moved something and just move it back. All right. Uh, have fun doing that with some different data than I did. So if you choose to use the Gapminder data, you need to use this and this, not this and this. But these are the interesting variables anyway. That's all I've got for you. If you have any questions about this, we can go over it a little bit in class if you're still having trouble. Bye.